So let's look at how to create tables in Access. So let's look at an example of a bank database that captures the information of customers, their account information, and transactions. So to demonstrate both how to create and the concepts, we're going to first create one table, how to create it, and what are some of the properties of that particular tables. So to create a table, you click on Create, and you can see Table here. Create a new blank table, and you can define all the attributes of the tables. Now it opens up something like this. So right click, or you can go to View and say Design View. It'll ask for you to create a name for this. Let's look at example 1, Cust. That refers to the example 1 of a customer. So this is the place where you define the various attributes of the tables. By default, it shows up as an ID, as something what you call a primary key. There is a key symbol here, and we'll discuss what they are. So we don't care about that. Let's go ahead for a customer database. Something that identifies the customer is the customer social security number. So you have to come up with a very standard way of actually naming them. In this case, I will name them as Cust, SSN. Some companies, if you walk in, they'll say all table attributes of a table should start with TBL, table, and the name of that attribute. It depends on the company and how they structure it. So now, customer social security number, the data type is where what type of data is it. If you click here, you see text. It could be a memo, a long text. It could be date, time. It could be a calculated field, a number. It can be any number of those data type. So in this case, it's a text, because even though social security number has all digits, we will want that into a particular format. And if you use it as a number, then the social security number can never begin with 0. Somebody might have a social security number starting with 0. So let's look at text. The size of the field here, I will say 11, 9 digits and 2 hyphen. If you look at it, you can define what type of input mask. What this says is, hey, when you put information, how should it look like? Say the predetermined input mask. If you see all these 3 dots here, if you click here, it says you must save the table first, say yes. And we have a built-in format that says social security number. You can click that, say next. You can read what the instruction says, say finish. So you see a well-defined input mask. So if somebody enters something other than this mask, you get an error. So let's go ahead and look at the next attribute, customer name. It's a text, and we'll assume somebody has a long name. If you think the name cannot be more than 25, you can say 25. Customer state. So here, customer state is a text, and we'll assume that there's going to only be 2 digits or 2 characters. And let's say the default value for anybody who comes in as Texas. You got to have a validation rule that says, hey, we want only customers from Texas and Oklahoma. Sorry, we are going to use Oklahoma here as an example. So let's say Texas or Oklahoma. Okay. So the validation text is, if they enter something other than Texas and Oklahoma, you say need to enter Texas or Oklahoma. So you're basically giving a warning to the user. If they enter other than Texas or Oklahoma, it gives you a warning. So let's look at another one, customer zip. Customer zip is, let's say it's a text of field size 5. Okay. Now you can say that field size should always be 5 digits, in which case you want to give a validation rule that has a built-in function that looks at the length of this, and I'm going to let you figure it out how to put those functions that validates what you enter. If it is less than 5 digits, then you should get an error. So there are functions called length, len. Look at the structure, you can build those validation rules. So once you have entered the table information, let's say you can exit out. Before that, let's look at what does this mean. We have defined this customer SSN to be the primary key. If you have a table without a primary key and you want to put primary key, highlight the row, right click and say primary key. In this case it takes it out because it's already there. So you can highlight this one and just click on this primary key as well. So you see this lock key here. That key says that that particular field name is a unique identifier for the table and it cannot repeat. So once you have done that, let's save. So let's go ahead and open this particular table. There's no data here. So let's look at how this thing works. Customer social security number. Assume that I want to put some number and I just accidentally write only 3 and hit enter. It tells you the value entered isn't appropriate for the input mask. It says it has to have the exact match. So let's say 5. Customer name Kunana. So the customer state by default we have set Texas. Assume that you want to remove Texas and say Arizona. And if you move away, it will tell you need to enter Texas or Oklahoma because it has to take these two values. Say OK. So let's say Texas. Customer zip 78750. So if you hit enter, then it accepts it. Now let's go back and see we defined a primary key. Customer SSN is supposed to be a primary key. Let's go in and put 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 3, 4, 5, 5 again. Since we have defined this particular attribute to be the primary key, it cannot take another value of the same customer SSN. So if you hit enter, it might take, but you go to the next row, it says the changes you requested to the table were not successful because you would create duplicate values in the index primary key or relationship. In this case, the primary key is duplicated, it won't accept it. Okay, now you have to go back here and maybe I'll put that as 2222 and I'll put Ashish, Oklahoma, zip, it takes it. So in this particular lesson, we figured out how to create a table, how to define primary key, how to define the various data type. You can impose restrictions on the values of these attributes. And we also tested how this primary key works. So this is the first lesson, and we will go ahead, create another table, and try to see how to build relationships.